You're listening to The Phillip Jordan Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show. I am your host, Phillip Jordan, the in-studio host and producer. That's What's Football on 96.9 The Legend, and I am the Auburn writer for Last Word on college football. We are going audio only, and I'm going solo on this edition of the podcast, kind of like a weekend update, weekend observations, just going over since it happened during the weekend. And also, I just wanted to do this here on Monday just because the NFL draft. On the heels of that, didn't want to wait till midweek to talk about that when some more episodes are coming your way. And we've got a lot of good guests coming up later on in the week. But today I just wanted to do a solo edition of the podcast, just looking over the NFL draft. We'll look at where the players from Alabama, Auburn, Troy, and Florida State went. Some notable undrafted quarterbacks where they have signed. We'll also get into Troy T-Day. I was there on Saturday. A lot of fun. And if anybody knows me, knows I'm a big fan of these alternate or spring football leagues. So we're going to go over a UFL roundup toward the end of the show. Birmingham Stallions. We got to talk about them. So that's pretty much going to be the lay of this edition of the Phillip Jordan Show. You can check out the Phillip Jordan Show podcast over at wiregrassdailynews.com or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you are just a straight-up hater. You can email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. All right, so I said we're going to recap the NFL draft. I am not about to analyze all 7 rounds from Thursday into Saturday. Most of what I'm going to do here for today, I am just going to go look back at the first round from Thursday night. My thoughts on the first round picks. And then, like I said, we'll jump into I got some other quarterbacks wrote down too as well. And one of my guests later in the week is somebody that covers New Orleans Saints. We're going to look at the New Orleans Saints draft picks. Probably going to do that with some other NFL teams as well as we are in this point of the year. Of course, also, we're about to hit May. Won't be long. We start previewing college football teams, doing a bunch of different stuff. But that's one thing I want to do. Just kind of like just go through some of these teams and who they pick, especially here. We're in the Southeast, the Saints, the Falcons, the Titans, and some of the teams like that. Really want to get into the off seasons and also who they pick draft. So you're going to say, hey, Phillip, you only did the first round. Look, we're going to jump into a few teams individually here on the show in the next few weeks, next few months, really, before we really get the ramp up to the football season, both college and the NFL. But let's go through the first round. And I'm going to go through every first round pick, every single one from last Thursday. Of course, we know it. Look, I know most of you know where everybody went. So this is more just putting my 2 cents on all these guys. And you may hear a little pause or delay from some time because, hey, this is a 20 to 30 minute podcast by myself. So a few times I'm going to have to kind of give myself a moment, come up for air a little bit. But anyways, number 1, Chicago. They took Caleb Williams. No surprise here, especially when they traded away Justin Fields. We all knew that this was going to be the pick. I know there's a lot of people, too, that look at Caleb Williams as a can't-miss prospect. I'm not one of those people. I think sometimes he relies too much on the super unordinary throws, the Patrick Mahomes throws, which is actually what Patrick Mahomes used to be, not what Patrick Mahomes now is really, in a sense, just a guy that just takes what defense gives him. But we know, we think of Patrick Mahomes, we're thinking about his early years there with Kansas City, the wild throws, and he made most of them. Caleb Williams, you're not going to do those kind of throws on a regular basis. I want to see how he develops as a pure pocket passer, someone that just wins from the pocket, not running around, Sandlot, Johnny Manziel style football and make a great throw. But super talented, we all know this, but I don't feel like he could be that unquestionable can't miss prospect. I don't really think there's any prospect like that, but particularly with him. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust, but I'm also saying at the same time, I want to wait and see. So does Chicago's team. Then the Washington Commanders went with Jaden Daniels, quarterback for LSU, at number 2. And I really thought this was a great possibility when they went out and signed Marcus Mariota, because usually you want your backup and your starting quarterback to be very similar in skill set, because then you don't have to change your offense completely the opposite of what you were running. When your backup comes in, you want your backup to run or be a style quarterback very close to your starter. That's why you always see the Baltimore Ravens bring in a quarterback that's got great running ability, because if Lamar Jackson goes out, you don't want to bring in, let's just say if they brought back their former quarterback, Joe Flacco. That's a big difference in offense. You really got to change everything you do. So you want those two to stay the same. And Jaden Daniels really is a quarterback that has shown great improvement through his college career. Arizona State had a good first year, then it was kind of so-so. Then he arrives at LSU, first game against Florida State. I looked at him as a first read and go quarterback. I didn't think he was one that could read a defense or was willing to read a defense. And then as that first year at LSU kind of went along, I looked at him as one, okay, he's getting better, but sometimes he's just too safe with the ball. He won't push it in certain areas, and that's something you have to do in the NFL, because receivers are not going to be 10, 15 yards wide open on the regular in the NFL. You're going to have to put it in tight spots. But then this past year, when he won the Heisman Trophy, I just feel like he really took his game to another level. Yes, he had 2 NFL wide receivers with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, but at the same time, he showed great maturity and great growth as a pocket passer. And, of course, he can take off and run and beat you. Now, of course, his body frame concerning a little bit. But, look, I think that's just who he is, and just learning to get down, get out of bounds, not taking those hits. There's a lot of quarterbacks that we have thought coming into the league, they're too small, they're going to take a lot of hits, they're going to get hurt. They have learned not to take those hits. And we have to trust, especially if you're Washington, that Jaden Daniels will be one of those guys. Then the New England Patriots at 3, they took Drake May, quarterback out of North Carolina. When we started the football season last year in college, everybody just, okay, it's Caleb Williams and it's Drake May 1 and 2. And there's a lot of people out there that would have probably put Drake May above at that time. But as we went on with the year, look, he didn't have the same supporting cast, especially at receiver there at North Carolina, that he had the previous year. It was kind of not the year I think North Carolina was hoping with him. And he kind of got picked and prodded a lot, and he kind of dropped. And a lot of people said, well, he's a raw talent, and you're going to have to work with him if you bring him in. I like his running ability. I had said this before. He reminds me of Aaron Rodgers on the field, not off the field. And with his skill set, yes, all these quarterbacks need work on stuff. None of these quarterbacks are perfect coming into the league. I feel like Drake May, this is a good pick for New England. And the fact is they got Jacoby Brissett. They do have somebody they could start if they're not ready to put Drake May out there yet. Hopefully, this franchise does Drake May a lot better than it did Matt Jones. I like Drake May. I think, to me, he has a higher ceiling than Caleb Williams. It's just my opinion. I know I'm going to be in the minority on that one. But I really like this pick. Let's see what they can do in New England. They need a lot. This is a complete rebuild for New England. And look, at also you're looking at a quarterback here. If you don't have to play him right away, Jacoby Brissett. Look, you're in the same division with Buffalo, with the Jets, who will be better if Aaron Rodgers plays the whole year. And then, of course, you got Miami Dolphins. So we'll see. But that's kind of where I feel with that one. Arizona went wide receiver at number 4 with Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. Pair him with Kyler Murray. Let's see how much longer will this thing go with the quarterback situation there. You kind of thought maybe somebody might jump up and trade up for that spot to get a quarterback. Maybe there's some teams you want to talk about. Maybe Minnesota, maybe Denver, teams like that. But nobody did. So Arizona State says Marvin Harrison Jr. Of course, we know the pedigree. His dad, Marvin Harrison, one of the all-time greats. This is a skilled wide receiver, so this adds weapons for Arizona. And really, when you look at it, perhaps best player available. And that's what they did there. Number 5, the Los Angeles Chargers go with Joe Alt, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. Of course, Jim Harbaugh was not shocked. He wants to play a physical brand of football, and he wants to protect Justin Herbert. At number 6, the New York Giants went with Malik Neighbors, wide receiver. Of course, a lot of people, and it seemed like you always would see speculation that maybe the Giants would go quarterback with their pick. Perhaps they would trade up. Or just at number 6, go with another quarterback, which they would be with the number 4 quarterback here. But no, they're sticking with Daniel Jones They're going to roll with him. Let's see. Can Daniel Jones be the quarterback he was in 2022? If he can, this is a really good pick. So now you got a potential elite talent at wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. And if it doesn't work out, look, next year you'll be bad. And then you can draft high and get a quarterback. There's some good quarterbacks in next year's class. And then you got potentially your number one receiver there if Daniel Jones doesn't work out. At number 7, the Tennessee Titans took J.C. Latham, the first Alabama player, offensive tackle. Will Levis is your guy. You got to protect your guy. Smart move here. Build your team, but you got to always build it up front first. Offense, defensive line. Tennessee going with this here. Now, this was a surprise of the draft on Thursday night, first round. And I was watching it with a bunch of people. And we were all kind of surprised at this pick where Atlanta would go. Quarterback, Michael Penix out of Washington. Of course, they've got Kirk Cousins there. They just signed him to a 4-year deal. And now you're going to draft a quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. So I think it's a bad pick. I think they should have went with maybe offensive line, maybe defense, to something like that. Build for this team coming up in the NFC South where, look, if I had to look at it right now, I'm very curious, can Tampa Bay repeat what they did last year with Baker Mayfield? I have my doubts. We'll just see. And then New Orleans is a skilled team. They've got talent there. And you would think, okay, that team there. But Atlanta really has talent to be the best team in the NFC South. So you need to add to that. So now you're bringing Michael Penix. Obviously going to start Kirk Cousins year one. And I've been seeing a lot of this. I said, well, they want to go with the Green Bay Packers model. Well, Atlanta, here's where you're mistaken. Kirk Cousins has not been your quarterback for over a decade. He has not been your longtime quarterback. He's not your Hall of Fame quarterback, your franchise quarterback that has been there for several years. That was a situation with Favre when they drafted Aaron Rodgers. And then with Aaron Rodgers when they drafted Jordan Love. And those quarterbacks fell to them or dropped down to them later parts of the first round. Now, yeah, the Packers traded up a few spots for Jordan Love, but I believe they still could have got him where they were at that year. But of course, with Aaron Rodgers, he just fell into him. I mean, everybody thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be a top 5 pick, maybe the first pick in that draft, and then he falls and the Packers take him. So this is not the same thing here. And Kirk Cousins, yes, he's coming off an injury. And there may be some doubts. And in his age, I mean, he's getting up there in years for a quarterback or for an NFL player. But still, I think this was a wasted pick because this is one you're not going to be able to use this year unless Kirk Cousins gets hurt or you're just incredibly awful, which I think would surprise a lot of people. So I'm not too keen on this pick for Atlanta. Number 9, Chicago. They had another pick. And for people that didn't know, Chicago had the first pick because they traded with Carolina last year. Because, of course, Carolina was the worst team in the league, but Chicago got their pick. Number 9, this has been Chicago's regular pick. They pick up Washington wide receiver Rome Odunze. And this is big. Chicago's got playmakers at receiver. You add him in there. You got Keenan Allen. You got DJ Moore. So they got weapons for Caleb Williams. So this is an interesting pick here and really loaded receiver now if Rome Odunze can live up to expectations. Then Minnesota would trade up with the Jets. They pretty much just swap spots 10 and 11. They pick up quarterback J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. Of course, Minnesota signed Sam Darnold after losing Kirk Cousins in free agency. But I'm kind of – J.J. McCarthy has shown some stuff as a passer. I am not going to say he hasn't. But he doesn't have a lot of reps behind him. He's got the talent. He's got the skills, but just not a lot of experience throwing a football in college under Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. So we'll see. This is interesting. Justin Jefferson, you got a great target out there. How long will Sam Darnold? I feel like they'll maybe want Sam Darnold to be the quarterback first, but then J.J. McCarthy, I think, will probably take that over, though. Then at 11 in the swap. Now, there's a couple of names here because a lot of these players in the Big Ten or the Pac-12 that I don't watch on a regular because, look, the Twitter handle's P. Jordan SEC. So, I'm predominantly watching the SEC on Saturdays. So, if I mispronounce some names here, I apologize. But the Jets drafted Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle from Penn State. Of course, that's from the Minnesota thing. Look, we saw the first game. When Aaron Rodgers was in that first game, first drive, which is all we saw of him because then he got hurt. He was running for his life. So you got to protect Aaron Rodgers because, look, He's not the mobile quarterback he once was either, getting away from that stuff. So you got to protect Aaron Rodgers. Here's the interesting thing here. Minnesota could have gotten J.J. McCarthy at 11 because we all know the Jets weren't going to draft a quarterback. So were there some lies, some other stuff going on here? Was Minnesota being told, hey, some teams may trade up for this pick? Yeah, and then the Jets, because there was some other compensation in there as well, but very interesting. Then at number 12, the Denver Broncos select Bo Nix, former Oregon and Auburn quarterback. Tremendous career there at Oregon. Didn't work out at Auburn. I think this is the guy that we could see first out of everybody starting just because of his college experience. And then we look at who their quarterbacks on the roster. Zach Wilson, they just traded for. Who in the world would trade for Zach Wilson? I don't know. Jarrett Stidham, who is the guy Bo Nix followed at Auburn. And then also Ben DiNucci, who is a great quarterback in the XFL last year. But if I had to look, which one of these quarterbacks do I think would be the one that would not be there? You're obviously not going to carry 4 quarterbacks. You would probably think Ben DiNucci would be the one to be out, but we'll see. Zach Wilson could be that very well, too, the guy that we don't see there. All right, 13, Las Vegas Raiders. They picked up Brock Bowers, tight end Georgia. One of the best players out there. I think he kind of got hurt a little bit in his spot in the draft due to being a tight end. But still, that's a great pick. And just the Raiders, you weren't good last year. You need that talent. New Orleans. This is another one of these. See if I can get the name right. Talise Fuego, offensive tackle from Oregon State. Always good to build that up front. Indianapolis Colts at 15. Pick up Liatu Lotu, defensive end from UCLA. I think the Colts defense really was not great last year, so adding that would be big. Then Seattle, they pick up more defense. We went, half the draft before we started getting into defense. They picked up Byron Murphy, the second defensive tackle at Texas. One of the best defensive players, if not the best, especially up front in the Big 12 last year. They're Texas, part of that group that gave Alabama trouble in that matchup and what led this team to the college football playoff. We all talked about Quinn Ewers, the receivers, and everything else with this team, but with the Texas team, but that defensive front, they were a terror for a lot of teams. So big pickup there for the Seattle Seahawks. All right, number 17, the Minnesota Vikings. Of course, they go pick up Dallas Turner, defensive end from Alabama. Big pickup for them. And Dallas Turner, one of these guys, get to the quarterback. That's what you want. Cincinnati went with offensive line. Amarius Mims from University of Georgia. Look, even though they've got better offensive line, they still need to work on that. I still think that's not a great strength of Cincinnati. You got to keep Joe Burrow healthy. And him staying healthy has been an issue for the Bengals. So you got to keep Joe Burrow healthy. At number 19, the Los Angeles Rams went with Florida State defensive end Jared Verse. The Rams defense and this team kind of age. They're kind of in that mode now. They still have some veterans, but you're still trying to get younger for the future. Jared Verse, man, that's a guy. He just gets after quarterback. And that's just tremendous pickup. I think he could be an instant impact player for the Rams. At number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers pick Troy Fautanu, offensive tackle out of Washington. Pittsburgh needs to build up that offensive line. Number 21, Miami picks up Chop Robinson, defensive end out of Penn State. Miami's got the offense. They needed to get better defensively. The Philadelphia Eagles at number 22 picked up Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback from Toledo. That's another team. Look, last year, the Eagles defense was not great. And that was a big drop-off from the year before when they made the run to the Super Bowl. At 23, Jacksonville picked up wide receiver Brian Thomas, another top talent. There were some people out there, I remember after the season, said, who's the better receiver, Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas? We all pretty much knew it was Malik Neighbors, but there were those conversations you would see online. And the thing for Jacksonville, that was one of 3 LSU players they got. In the second round, they went and got Mason Smith, defensive tackle, and they also went and got Jordan Jefferson in the 4th round. So Jacksonville's liking some LSU players here, which is not a bad place to go. But Brian Thomas getting another weapon for Trevor Lawrence. I really feel like this is a big year. 2024 is a big year for Trevor Lawrence. We got to really start seeing more progressions. He's not turned into the generational talent that he was advertised to be coming out of Clemson, but it's time to step up. Time for him to really step up there for Jacksonville. At number 24, the Detroit Lions picked Terry Arnold, a cornerback from Alabama. The Green Bay Packers, y'all know that's my favorite pro football team. Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle from Arizona there. They got to protect Jordan Love. Bakhtiari, with him not being there anymore, you need some more offensive line depth. And we'll see. I think he's going to be in competition to start early on with the Packers. I know a lot of Packers fans weren't happy. It seems like, and I hate it for offensive linemen. And I've interviewed quite a few offensive linemen over my time to a podcast. They really get shafted on all these drafts, really, because they're not the flashy player. It's the offensive lineman. It just seems always fan bases, not always, most time they're really upset. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they go with Graham Barton, center out of Duke. Smart. I kind of wonder if was that just the best player available on their board. Arizona goes with Darius Robinson, defensive end from the Zoo. Just building that roster, getting better. Just trying to, make this team closer and closer to being a 500 playoff potential team. Just a lot of work needs to be done there. Kansas City, they get a big one. Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas. Look, this team has won back-to-back championships, but we looked at this team in this past year like this really is a team that we thought, okay, this is the year you can get Kansas City because they really do need to improve the wide receiver position. And they do here. Now they have somebody that's like a top off of defense where they have not had. And now what you do with Kelsey over the middle, or Patrick Mahomes with some of the other players they have, but getting Xavier Worthy is big here, having a deep threat with this offense once again. Dallas Cowboys, they went offensive line, Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. At number 30, you had Baltimore, Nate Wiggins. They get cornerback out of Clemson. San Francisco picked up Ricky Pearsall out of Florida, which could be big because you've been hearing some chatter. What do you do at the end of the day? Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. You have two receivers. You're going to want some money, more than likely. You have to part with one of them. And if you did, Ricky Pearsall, Florida, he just so many big plays made from Florida in the past game. He was, without a doubt, the number one receiver, the biggest threat they had on the outside. And he really did some big things there for Florida. And then to close out the first round, Carolina, Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina. And they needed receiver help. They needed all kinds of help around Bryce Young. And this is a big piece here. Adding somebody on the outside he can get the ball to. And, of course, some other quarterbacks that went drafted. So we had 6 in the first round. We didn't even have 4 the rest of the way. At 150, the Saints did pick Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina. Look, man, this was a guy a couple years ago. People thought it could be a potential number 1 pick, and now see he goes out late in the draft. But a developmental pick. You still have Carr there in New Orleans. He doesn't work out. This is a talent you can work with. So this is a big get for New Orleans. Then the Jets, they picked up Jordan Travis late in the draft. I think this could be a steal of the draft. Of course, with a broken leg situation, he was not going to go high in the draft. I kind of wonder where he would have went had that not happened. I don't think he had been a first-round draft pick. Maybe second or third round, though. Let's see. It's all about needs of quarterback, too, when you look at that. But look, you got somebody as a backup. Maybe he can develop. Let's see how many years you have of Aaron Rodgers. And who knows? Jordan Travis, with his running ability, and greatly improved as a passer over his time. Then also the Ravens picked up Devin Leary out of Kentucky. I just don't see Devin Leary being around the NFL long. I just don't. I could very much see this guy either in the CFL or if the UFL hangs around, be it something like that. The Packers picked up Michael Pratt from Tulane. So why are they drafting a quarterback? Packers seem to like they want to jump into the thing of drafting a quarterback. Don't mean they're necessarily going to be on the roster, but also just kind of bring people in, developmental, have a good backup in place behind your starting quarterback. They drafted Sean Clifford last year. Now they get Michael Pratt here. We'll see how that works out during minicamp and preseason and all that as we lead up into the season. All right, everybody, I'm going to take a 1-minute break to catch my breath. When we come back, we'll look at the Alabama, Auburn, Troy, Florida State pickups. And we'll also jump into T-Day, which was Saturday, and do a little UFL roundup right here on the Phillip Jordan Show.
96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits, 106.7 KMX, Today's Country, 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7. Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
All right, so who else from Alabama got drafted? Of course, mentioned the first round picks. J.C. Latham went at 7 to Tennessee. Dallas Turner went at 17 to Minnesota. And then Terry Arnold went at 24 to Detroit. So in the second round, Kool-Aid McKinstry with the 41st pick went to New Orleans. And then Chris Braswell, defensive end, he was the 57th pick there in the second round. He goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jermaine Burton, wide receiver, he went in the third round at number 80 to Cincinnati. Adds more weapons for Joe Burrow there. Defensive tackle, Justin Igawabwe. I have never been able to say his name right, and I know I'm in Alabama, and I've watched this team enough that I should be able to say his name right. And I know just by saying that, any Alabama fans or anybody in general, listen to me say that, you're going to destroy me on social media probably. But I apologize, but that's just been an issue of mine. I'm sorry. But anyways, he goes to the Los Angeles Chargers, 4th round to 105th pick. In the 6th round at 186, running back Jace McClellan goes to Atlanta. At 203, kicker Real Reichert goes to Minnesota. Then in the 7th round at 257, safety Jalen Key goes to New York Jets as Mr. Irrelevant. Hey, it worked out for Brock Purdy, so we'll see how it goes with Key. And then undrafted of this recording, you had Darian Dalcourt trying to see if he's going to get picked up. That's one player out there. All right, let's look at Auburn. Now, Auburn did not have a draft pick go into the 5th round. And this just shows you where the talent was at when Hugh Freeze took over Auburn. Now, I don't think that is 1% on Brian Harsin, also Gus Malzahn his last couple of years too, not the recruiting, not bringing in talent. And a lot of good players. We just saw Bo Nix that left Auburn too, that probably would have been in those rounds as well. So Hugh Freeze is really rebuilding this Auburn team, and we see that without having a pick in the first 4 rounds. But in the 5th round at 136, cornerback Nehemiah Pritchett goes to Seattle. You're just talking 30 minutes straight. Just can't say people's names, I guess. At 164 in the 5th round, safety Jalen Simpson goes to the Indianapolis Colts. In the 6th round at 192, cornerback DJ James goes to Seattle. So 2 Auburn cornerbacks are going to be playing for the Seahawks. And then in the 7th round at 244, defense tackle Justin Rogers goes to Dallas. And at pick 247, defense tackle Marcus Harris goes to Houston. I really thought Marcus Houston would be the first Auburn player that was taken. 1% wrong on that one. Really surprised he went as late as he did there in the 7th round. Undrafted free agents where they have signed for Auburn. Offensive lineman Avery Jones, he is headed to Tampa. Another offensive lineman, Cam Stutz, he's going to the Baltimore Ravens. And then lastly, again, on the offensive line, Gunnar Britton going to Buffalo. For the Detroit Trojans, only 2 players were actually drafted in the 5th round at 168. Defensive end Javon Solomon went to Buffalo. And then running back in the 6th round at pick 181, Kamani Vidal is going to the Los Angeles Chargers. As I said, I was at T-Day, and these players were drafted while T-Day was going on. So there's a announcement over the speakers. The people that were there are really excited to hear that. Now, undrafted free agent. Now, some of these are just mini camp invites, and some are just been signed. But defensive back Dale Pettis with the New England Patriots. Quarterback Reddy Stewart with Chicago Bears. Wide receivers Marcus Rogers, Chicago Bears. Quarterback Don Collis, Green Bay Packers. linebacker Richard Jubinor, Seattle Seahawks, and quarterback Gunnar Watson. Now, this is a minicamp invite, so we'll see how it goes from there. He is going to the Buffalo Bills. For the Florida State Seminoles, they had 10 players taken in the draft, most out of all the teams from the ACC. Of course, all these players, we didn't see against Georgia in the bowl game. In the first round, only one first round, and we mentioned this at 19 to the Rams, defensive end Jared First. Then at the second round, the 33rd pick, wide receiver Keon Coleman goes to Buffalo. 39, defense tackle Braden Fisk goes to the Rams. 64, defensive back Renardo Green goes to the 49ers. In the third round at 66, running back Trey Benson goes to Arizona. And at 96, DB Jerry Jones goes to Jacksonville. In the fifth round at pick 171, quarterback Jordan Travis goes to New York Jets. We talked about that one just a few minutes ago. In the sixth round at 185, wide receiver Johnny Wilson goes to Philadelphia Eagles. And in the seventh round at pick 231, tight end Jaheim Bell goes to the Patriots. And at pick 251, linebacker Tatum Bethune goes to the 49ers. Undrafted free agents that have signed as of this recording for the Seminoles. Defensive tackle Fabian Lovett going to the Chiefs. Linebacker Kalen DeLoach gets picked up by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And safety Akeem Dent going to the Los Angeles Chargers. Just kind of looking at it too, undrafted quarterbacks where they have signed so far. Louisville quarterback Jake Plummer is going to Carolina. West Kentucky quarterback Austin Reed broke all kind of, not records. Bailey Zappi was there before him, but put up big numbers. He is going to the Bears. Keaton Slovis got picked up by the Colts. This guy played for USC first 3 years of his college career, Pitt, and then BYU. Spencer Sanders, who spent most of his career at Oklahoma State, was the backup quarterback for Ole Miss. He is going to Kansas City. Now, there's been speculation that the only reason why Lane Kiffin even brought him in was so Auburn couldn't get him. And I would not be surprised if that's true. All right, South Alabama quarterback Carter Bradley, he's going to the Raiders. With his dad being Gus Bradley, NFL assistant, he may have this may be a guy you see in NFL for a while as a backup quarterback just because coach's son, just the mind of the game and all that stuff. And then Sam Hartman, who was at Notre Dame this past year but spent the last 3 or 4 years obviously at Wake Forest. He goes to Washington. What's interesting about that, the whole thing with Sam Hartman going to Notre Dame was so he could get better. It is so he could be looked at as a more pro prospect, and he still didn't get drafted. All right, so a few more things. We're going to get out of here a little bit longer than I thought this would go. Troy T-Day, the defense, defeated offense. This is not a typo. I am not lying to you. The Troy defense wins 154 to 141. There was no tackling in this game, and here's how it went. First quarter was 7-on-7 and 1-on-1 competition, so there was a bunch of points being added to that kind of stuff. And the point system was really, really not complicated, but there's just a lot of different ways to put points up in the spring game. The second quarter was more of a red zone offense versus defense, which was the whole theme of the offense versus defense. Third quarter was your standard scrimmage, what you would normally see in a spring game. And as I said, no tackling. Then the fourth quarter, it was more about some competitions. You had some field goal kicking competitions. You had some punting competitions. And then you had some appearances by some alumni, some guests on the Troy side. You had a quarterbacks competition, of course, with Tucker Gilchrist and Goose Crowder, but also adding in that was last 2 years quarterback, Gunnar Watson, and then also Corey Robinson made a return. And I'll say this, they had like a target in the back corner of the end zone that they were throwing to. I don't mean this as picking because I couldn't make the throw at all, not even as close as he was getting, but Corey Robinson was probably the furthest away from it, but you also tell this is a guy that has not thrown a football in a while. One of the coolest moments of the day was the award given to Chris Lewis, wide receiver, the Troy Athletics Spirit of a Warrior Award. Of course, he is fighting bone cancer, recently had surgery. That was a cool moment. Everybody stood up, gave him a standing ovation. Seemed like all his teammates came out to center field, congratulating him too as well. Just seemed like a really cool moment for everybody involved, for him. And just hope, prayers, he gets through this and everything. And back on the game, the one-on-ones defense won 7 of the 11 one-on-ones there in the first quarter. Wide receiver Zariah Benson had 2 touchdowns, a 27-yarder from Goose Crowder and a 25-yarder from Tucker Kilcrease. And Kilcrease also connected with Jordan Lovett on a 25-yard touchdown pass. And last, let's get out here, I guess, kind of like a UFL roundup for the weekend. The Birmingham Stallions, the best football team in the state of Alabama, continues their undefeated ways, winning 32-9 over Houston to go to 5-0. Houston drops to 1-4. Birmingham had 20 points there in the second quarter. Quarterback Adrian Martinez was 11-20 for 155 and 1 touchdown, and then he ran for 138 on the ground. And this has been a thing with Birmingham swapping quarterbacks out each game. Matt Corral was last week, Adrian Martinez this week. Let's see what they go with this week when they go play Memphis, if they will go with Matt Corral, or I think they should just stay with Adrian Martinez because the margin of victory has been bigger when Adrian Martinez is playing a quarterback. San Antonio defeated Arlington 25-15 to go to 4-1. Arlington's 0-5 on the year. Running backs John Lovett and Morgan Allison for San Antonio had 179 of the 190 yards. Quarterback Quentin Dormady was 19-30 for 164, 1 touchdown. They had a late sack by Zach McLeod against Luis Perez when Arlington was trying to make a comeback bid. On Sunday, St. Louis was all over DC, 45-12 to go to 4-1. DC's 2-3. 3 interceptions off of Jordan Chalmers, the quarterback of DC. St. Louis was up 17-0 early. DC did come back, though, and get within 17-12. And it was actually 17-12 late in the third quarter before St. Louis blew it open with 25 points there in the fourth quarter. A.J. McCarron, former Alabama quarterback, was 14-24 for 213, 2 touchdowns. On the year, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception. Wide receiver Hakeem Butler had a big game, 6 catches, 147 and 2 touchdowns. DC only had 51 yards rushing, and that's why that team has struggled. They were the best rushing team in the league last year with Tiamu, what he could do running, and then just Abram Smith. And De'Aaron King, the backup quarterback, was a running threat. They just are not the running team. And for a big chunk of the game here, it was Jordan Tiamu as the leading rusher. And then finally, Michigan defeated Memphis 35-18. So Michigan is now 3-2. Pretty got a good hold on to second place in the USFL division. And Memphis falls to 1-4. Danny Atling, former LSU quarterback, got the start for A.J. Perry in Michigan. It was 14-21 for 175 in the game. Troy Williams, who was replacing Case Cookis in this one, I think really he's their best option just because he can escape, because this Memphis offensive line is probably the worst in the league. But he was 19-37. He did throw for 3 touchdowns. They did make a late comeback, but just was not enough there at the end. The running game for Michigan was really big. Wes Hills had 82 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then Matthew Coburn had 68 yards, 1 touchdown. As I was speaking about Memphis's offensive line, another bad game. They gave up 7 sacks on the day. So that's kind of like your weekend roundup, weekend recap, weekend observations, whatever you want to call it. I thought that thing go 20, 25 minutes. We've gone 38 minutes. So, and I'm going to close it up on that. I'll be back on Wednesday. I am scheduled to be joined by Taylor Jones from the Auburn Wire. We're going to talk Auburn football and basketball, the transfer portal additions, subtractions, all that good stuff. That'll be up on Wednesday. And then on Friday, as I told you, we're going to look at some of these NFL teams, what they did in the draft, who they signed, why they signed, how it fits offseason. We'll be talking New Orleans Saints stuff. And in honor of the Birmingham Stallions, I know we don't really do that much here on this show, but we're going to talk about their matchup with the Memphis Showboats from this week. And Eli Savoy, who is the radio voice of the Memphis Showboats, he will be joining me. And we'll look ahead to that on Friday's show. So a lot of cool stuff going on this week. Hope you will check us out. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast available over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You're on Apple Podcasts. Please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you are just a straight-up hater. Remember, you can email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com and check out all my written work at Last Word on college football. And please go to Wiregrass Daily News for all your latest on news in the Wiregrass. Everybody has a great start to the week. Until Wednesday, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Phillip Jordan Show. Subscribe to the audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch the show over at the Phillip Jordan Media YouTube channel. Got a question or topic idea? Email the show at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. Join us next time for more great football talk.